Do you guys know each other previously?
All right, welcome everybody, Psychoturks podcast. Appreciate you all listening. I'm Mike Stewart. I'm your host, joined as always by the grumpy and cantankerous Dave Dalton. Dave, how you
The
doing?
old man of the group.
Yep.
You just call me grumpy. Why are you asking me how I'm doing? You
Well,
should know
because
that.
it's a tradition, and we like to hear how your grumpiness is affecting your daily life. That's kind
I'm
of the move.
fine. I'm
Yeah.
fine.
All right.
Especially
Anyway,
thrilled about our guest.
yeah, let's get to it. We're both super excited about this one. Our next guest is a family man. He's a national champ. He's a YouTuber. Uh, Maybe some of you've heard of the Impossible Route. The list of achievements is many, and we are just honored to have this dude on our podcast. Tyler Pearce, a vegan cyclist. Welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, boys.
Yeah.
Stoked to be here and stoked to chat.
Yeah, awesome. So I wanted to you posted something, it was a while back, but it was about body dysmorphia, right? I mean, there's a lot of different things we could talk about, but this one post is something that Dave and it's been a kind of a consistent theme on the podcast, and it's kind of amazing with all the different guests that we've had, um, the amount of body dysmorphia in cycling and how we tend to obsess over, 3 to 5 pounds. Um, where it on the outside to a non-cyclist, it's just absolutely ridiculous. We're talking about 3 to 5 pounds. But you did this post that showed uh, the lean racer Tyler, and then
Yeah.
now the
The
new
uh,
one. Yeah, go ahead.
the skeleton frame for sure. And I
And
mean it's
Tyler, let me just first apologize for on behalf of Mike. He just likes to skip the foreplay and get right into the sex. So
Yeah.
if we've gone right
oh,
to the sex,
Have you been talking to my wife? What is going on here? Come on now.
no. I mean it's all good. I mean, we don't need to talk about the weather. You know what I mean? Let's
yeah.
jump right into the
Yeah.
good stuff. So no, look, I mean, um, it was crazy now looking back on a lot of the photos, and I look back at old videos, and I'm just like, well, because I remember how I thought I looked in my head, right?
Hmm.
So I have this. It's very strange. Like I look into my file folder in my brain, and the category of where I thought I looked versus what I actually looked like shows me that my brain is rewriting reality, right? I mean, it's like an augmented reality filter over the top of myself. I couldn't see it. I thought I was great. You know what I mean? If I
Hmm.
was 150 pounds at 6'2", if my bones were showing, like awesome. You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
it was just so wild. And my wife would lots of people would say, are you sick? Like, is something wrong? Like, it looks like you have AIDS. And
Hmm.
I hear your watt per kilo is dope, dude. And I'm just like, yes, right. And so the attachment of weight to performance is such a dangerous thing to link, right? Because then that's what you focus on because you can control that. You can
Hmm.
control your weight. It's very hard to say, well, more watts is performance. And you're like, well, of course everyone wants more watts, but I can't just change that in a day, right? That's sort of beyond my control. I mean, I can stick to my training program, I can do my intervals, whatever, but that's a slow process. Losing 5 pounds, 10 pounds, relatively a quick process that you have control over. And so, it's something that's like the recipe of I can control this. It makes me faster will then disguise what that looks like and what that's doing to you in your brain. And so then it's just it's a very slippery slope for sure. Um,
Yeah.
and cycling is such a weird sport in that none. Okay, Toddy Pogachar,
Hmm.
take him and show him to the general public and say this guy's one of the greatest athletes to have ever lived. They would go, yeah, no, no,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not. They don't. No one looks like an athlete. Um, And
Right.
so it's just it's wild. And then you see these guys, you see these fast guys, and then you kind of want to mimic them, right? And so when their arms are sticks, like I wanted to go for that cartoon-esque huge quads, no upper body, right? I mean, I would actively avoid lifting anything with my upper body for years. I mean, I wouldn't like take the groceries up the stairs because I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe that gives my, working my arms out. Uh, and I've broken that cycle. And I feel way better as a human. But I think what's also so interesting, two things. One, the better I look, the worse I perform. Okay. So like if I
Hmm.
look like I am an athlete, I'm actually way worse on the bike, which is funny.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that when I posted that, I, my audience is 98% male, right?
Yeah.
I don't have many women that follow or engage, but on that post, I got about 50% engagement from women, which was like wildly in a different direction than I've ever seen. But they all said the same thing. They all said, I didn't know men dealt with this.
Mm.
Right. So that was so interesting to me. And then on the opposite of that, I had so many men reach out and go, I'm dealing with the same exact thing. I didn't know other people felt this way. I didn't know other men hated their body when they looked in the mirror. And so it was really strange when I posted that the men's side all agreed with me, and the women's side all didn't even know that was a thing. So all
Yeah.
the women were like, I've always been told that only women care about their body and like trip out on how they look. But it's like, dude, men do the same exact thing. We all do
Yeah, for
and so
sure.
that was one of the very interesting takeaways is how many women didn't even understand that. And when I told my wife that, she said, now that I'm thinking about it, I would never think about talking to our son about body image and that kind of thing. But she's already talked to my daughter about it, and she's 6.
Hmm.
To try to be like, hey, don't worry about it. Don't look in the mirror. Like, don't worry about your weight right now. You're 6 years old. Like that shouldn't be a
Right.
thing you think about. But she would never think about talking to my son about it because she just doesn't seem like that's a thing. But it is a thing.
Well, I
Uh,
think
it,
definitely a double standard for sure. When you're in it and you're trying to get those stick arms, you want the jersey loose on the sleeves. That's how you know you're really fit. And and someone says to you, "Man, are you sick?" In a weird way, does that make you feel like, yeah, whatever. I'm not sick. I'm about as powerful and as efficient as I can possibly be on the bike. It's almost like a compliment when someone calls you
I
sick.
think, I think, correct me, Tyler, if I'm wrong, but the old Tyler would have said yes. The new Tyler probably says no.
well, I mean, if they say, "Hey, are you sick?" I'd be like, "Dude, my FTP is sick." You
Yeah,
know.
right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would hear it as a compliment, and
Yeah.
and obviously, I know because someone on the outside would look and go, "Well, this guy can't even walk out the door without dying, let
Hmm.
alone that." Like, if you got into a P12 road race with me, bro, you would be out the back within 5 seconds and having a heart attack, right? And
Hmm.
so that's what's so hard is that when you are that lean, when you are that skinny, you are so incredibly efficient that there's such little amount of energy is required to make you go. And
Hmm.
so um look, I really liked being that lean and that light for a long time because of just how little energy it took for me to really do anything. I felt light and agile, and but now, it like I want to be a little bit more harder to kill, right? And
Hmm.
so at the end of Death Valley, I fell over in a parking lot and broke my femur.
Whoa.
Like, come on, dude. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so I
Yeah.
can ride through the Death Valley desert for 7 days, do something no other human has ever done. But if I slip, my bones break. Like,
Yeah.
come on, like this, that's ridiculous.
Right.
And look, to everyone Like they need to go through whatever journey they want to go through, and weight is very subjective. A lot of people will have body dysmorphia on both ends, right?
Yeah.
So like bodybuilders, they always see themselves as too skinny. Cyclists always see themselves as too fat, right? It's so wild, this brain body image that is not real. And I will say that, you know, I was reaching the end of my competitive career, right? So like in my late 20s, early 30s, I could compete in the Pro 1-2s. I could be competitive. Maybe I wasn't going to win, but I was there. Like getting
Mm.
dropped from a race wasn't ever a thing. Um, you know, and but the sport starting to pass me by. I kind of wanted a new mountain to climb. Right, I did get a 5.4 watt per kilo FTP at one point,
Wow.
which to people who don't even know what that means, like that, whatever. But that was a goal I had, and I was extremely dedicated to achieving that. But what was crazy is when I was doing my 20-minute test to achieve that, I was so bored with cycling, right? I was watching the power numbers on my computer versus the perceived exertion. And it was like a dream. It was like, this is what you've been working so hard for, is to be able to see 400 watts at 150 pounds and that not feel hard. But I was over it. I was like, dude, this is so boring. I don't care about this anymore, because all I did for years was stare at my power meter. Every single pedal stroke I made was to do something to my fitness. I would ride in magical places and never even look around because I'm just
Mhm.
staring at my power meter. A lot of times I wouldn't ride or wouldn't do things because it's like, well, that's not in the training program. And so I kind of like I hit that high and was sort of burnt out. And so then I was like, okay, well, either I'm going to quit cycling and move on to something else. But I really like this sport. I really like riding bikes, all the bikes. And so I was like, well, let me just switch gears. Let me try to go for an ultra distance national championship. And that requires a bigger raw power versus a watt per kilo. So then I was kind of like, also, I saw Walt Barnard like
Right.
drop a ton of climbers in the Tour de France. I think this was like 2021. Um, he like was crushing these skinny boys, and I'm like, well, dude, that's actually kind of sick. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
which he's super skinny as a human goes, okay, but like as of like skinny cyclist goes, he's huge. And
Yeah.
so then it broke that cycle. I started adding a little bit more mass, and I was eating once a day to maintain 150 to 155 pounds. I would fast 18 hours a day. I'd eat once, and that's kind of how I maintained that. But so I started bringing in more fuel. I started looking at my protein big time, right? Because as a cyclist, I wasn't really looking at protein very much, and so I wouldn't hold on to muscle outside of the muscles that I was working out. So like my leg muscles would stay, but everything else would just wither away. And so then I started really focusing on the macros of protein, tracking all my calories, making sure that I was adding mass but not adding fat. So
Hmm.
1 gram of protein per body pound of weight, plus doing about 300 to 500 calories surplus a day, allowed for me to build lean mass. And so then I went out and I won the first one, the first ultra distance national championships. That was cool. And then really kind of just kept going with that. And over the last 2.5 years, yeah, I've just added a lot of weight. Now I am so much happier with how my body looks aesthetically. Yeah, I like the way I feel. I can do more. So like yesterday, I ran a 750 minute mile half marathon. Right.
Wow.
So, and that was
Yeah.
that was after Saturday. Saturday, I did a 100-mile gravel race, and we went 4 hours 30 minutes. You know what I mean? It was a full gas gravel race on Saturday, and then
Yeah.
I flew home at 4 in the morning. did like a Taylor Swift concert, like tribute band with my daughter, and then went out and ran a half marathon, sub 8. Like that feels good to me, to be able to do multiple things. And so it's
Man.
been quite the journey, but like it's very, very hard for me to stay lean with muscle and not fall off the cliff and get like proper fat, right? It's very, very difficult for me, that my physique is 90% diet. So when I started posting, people are like, dude, what's the strength routine? Like, you got to show me what you're lifting. And it's like, I know you don't want to hear this, but it is mostly diet. Getting abs, that's made in the kitchen,
Yeah.
not so much in the gym.
Yeah.
And but that's hard. That's really hard. It's like track your macros and to make sure you fuel yourself right, but you're always kind of hungry. And then as in cycling terms go, you know what I mean? Like we burn so many calories, but we don't do it consistently. So what happens is, like, on Saturday, we'll burn 5,000, 6,000 calories. And then so your ghrelin hormone goes through the roof. You're so hungry, you burn too much fat, your metabolism crashes, right? And so then on Sunday, you're like, well, I deserve to eat everything. And then so you over consume by 3,000 or 4,000 calories on Sunday. So then you get this wild fluctuation of body fat. And so that's what also then fuels this body image, because you're like, well, dude, I just rode 100 miles and I got a KOM and I'm crushing. But you look at yourself in the mirror and you kind of have like, bitch titties, and you've got like a little roll on your belly. And you're like, what the hell is this?
Right. Yeah.
So
I
help
mean,
us put it in perspective, though. You were that picture. I think you actually labeled. You said you've been saying 150 to 155, but on that late post, I think it said 149. And where are you now?
Well, so my lightest, I got to 148, right? Like that was not good. Like even then I knew this was below the power curve, right? Like, yes, I was light, but I had no energy. I mean, I'd like ride for 10 minutes and just feel bonked. And so for me, 152 to like 156 was the sweet spot. That's where my watt per kilo was close to 5. And so I was able to hold the same watt per kilo. So as my weight increased, my power increased like parallel till about 173 to 175. And so right around, I'd say like 170-ish was, to me, like perfect, because I upped my power. So I had better flat power, but on the climbs, I was still able to put out like a very similar watt per kilo. But once I ticked over 175, then the weight started to become, detrimental to that. And so, but it, like in the winter, I got up to 190 pounds. So I kind of went on this big bulk, and I sort of maybe let it go a little too much, right? I was thinking, oh, well, dude, I'm eating as much as I want and my power is still good. And, then I went out and I did 340 watts for 3 hours.
Wow.
On the coast, which was like ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like it was unbelievable, but I was 190 pounds. And so, yeah, the watts were crazy, but then the speed was like, it didn't matter. You know what I mean? I'm just like, dude, so then I had watt dysmorphia, because I'm looking at the power. I'm looking at the power and I'm like, bro, I remember when this would have got me in the world tour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I could do 340 for 3 hours and weigh 150, I'm in the Tour de France. But like, so then I was like, okay, I've gone a little too far. Now I need to bring it back. And so then I went on about a 3-month cut and went from 190 down to 175 to 180. So right now, this morning I was 176, which, between 175 and 180 for me is like really good. My power is decent. My energy levels are decent. You know, physically, I think I look the best I've ever looked. I'm almost 40, and so you know, having a six pack has always been something I've wanted for my entire life, and so you know, I feel like not that aesthetics should be like that big of a deal, but you know, I've achieved a lot of cool things in my life, and right now I kind of want to look. I want to look athletic, you know. I don't want to look like a skeleton and be like, yeah, I might look like I have cancer, but bro, if you get me on the road and we go up a hill,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
You're
Like,
toast.
so
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And most
so
importantly, you said your wife thinks you're hot again, right? So isn't that what you said in your posts?
yeah, it's been our relationship has taken a hockey stick increase right now.
Yeah.
You know, and I
Good
mean, look, we
analogy.
got to we got together when we were 18, you know, so we've been together for pretty much our entire adult life, right? We have a solid relationship.
Yeah.
And obviously she's gonna love me no matter what, but there's I love you because you're my husband, and then there's I think you're hot as a dude. You know what I
Right.
mean? And most relationships don't have both. And so, you know, I'm always trying to provide value to my wife and to my family. And you know, that was something that she had to deal with and live through for years, where I was, you know, she had to take me to her family and her friends, and they don't understand. You know, they're
Yeah.
like,
Right.
your husband is sickly, you know.
Hmm.
And so then now, you know, it's definitely different. And yeah, so her attractiveness to me is through the roof, you know. I don't know how deep we want to get into that, but it's you know,
Yeah, we got
then
the point. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this it's
Well,
good. It's
so,
good.
I've been through not the same, but similar, where my wife, at one point she said, boy, you look like you have cancer. My friends are reaching out asking if you're okay, if there's anything they can do, you know. And so, and at the same time, like you, I'm going up Diablo faster than I've ever gone, and I'm just feel amazing on the bike. And I never still, even then, looking in the mirror, I still never felt like skinny, even though I was crazy skinny. And so
Because you could always be skinnier.
that's
You
right. I,
know,
I, I was just thinking,
yeah,
if I could just lose another 5 pounds, man, I could maybe shave another 30 seconds off,
yeah,
It's the
yeah.
way your mind, it's a vicious cycle. And, but I don't, just my wife's concern about my health and, saying that I look like I had cancer was really a wake-up call for me. And, um, so it helped me change things around. But I'm 58 and I don't have the six pack, darn it. But I'm working on it, So I do some core stuff, but I'm kind of surprised that you don't have, do you have two questions. Are you still eating just one time a day? And then have you adopted some kind of strength training regimen to go along with this increased calorie focused on protein and building? So yeah, can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, so I don't eat once a day anymore. There's a lot to unpack with that, but I definitely have a food addiction. I don't have a problem with drugs or alcohol or sex or any, like, I don't have any vices. You know, I could mainline heroin right now and wouldn't think about it ever again. You know,
Mhm.
it's just not, that's just not part of who I am. But with food, since my and I've done a couple of videos about this, but like my childhood was filled with so much love and warmth and caring, but it was all tied in some way to food, right? And so that's kind of how my mom showed me love. That's how my grandma showed me love. Like, it was just so. So when I eat, it is it is a dump of dopamine in my brain that is like a morphine level. Like, I get warm and fuzzy. I literally get high off food. Like, and it doesn't matter what it is. I could be eating anything. You know, I could be, so it's just, I eat, everything kind of goes quiet, everything sort of fuzzes out, and I could just stay in that state forever because I am the happiest, most comfortable. All my worries go away, you know. And so that's not a good connection in my brain, because then if I'm sad, I want to eat. If I'm happy, I want to eat. If I'm stressed, I want to eat. And there's no bottom to my stomach. So never ever have I said, I'm take my food away, I'm done, I can't finish it.
Uh-huh.
Never, right? I will eat. I only stop eating because it becomes socially unacceptable to continue eating.
I'm laughing. Listen, I'm laughing because people say like, where do you put it? Holy smokes. Like I can just there is no end to what I can consume. I just have to shut it down. So I can completely relate to what you're talking about.
Right, right. And so with that, I've tried a lot of different things, because to me, that's like a darkness in me where I
Mhm.
am on the verge of living in my mom's basement, being 600 pounds.
Uh,
It's just like that is a very close person to me. And so I've tried lots of different things, and being vegan was one of those things that would help me build this box around this darkness. So um, I, people don't really, a lot of people don't see food as an addiction, so it's hard for someone to understand that. But just like, imagine if someone was an alcoholic, but you had to drink 3 times a day. You have to take one shot for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but don't let it consume your life. And so that's was me. So
mhm.
being plant based was a way that I could consume more volume, without the ramifications of going in a caloric surplus. And so then there was that. Then I found intermittent fasting, which was huge, and lots of benefits to intermittent fasting, especially with cycling, because you develop essentially two motors. You have your ketone motor and you have your carb motor. And so you're able to, if you can train that system, you can essentially have zone 1 to 3, not even using your sugar stores. So you become very efficient. Obviously, like in the tour, you see all these guys doing ketones and stuff. But
Yeah.
anyways, the problem with that is that it doesn't give you much time for protein synthesis. And so I had to start eating 2 to 3 times a day. But again, for me, the second I eat something, I don't ever want to stop. And so fasting was huge for me, because the more you fasted, the less hungry I got, which is so counterintuitive. And no one would, until you've done it, you don't think, how can that be the case? But at 12, okay, at 10 hours, I'm super hungry. At 12, I'm kind of hungry. At 14 hours, I'm not hungry. At 16 hours, I don't even think about food. At 18 hours, what is food? I don't even care. So it's so strange. But the longer I fasted, the less hunger controlled my life. And so, but to add on weight, I needed to start eating more. So I'm around 2 meals a day if I don't exercise a lot. 3 meals a day if I do. And so, and then what was the other question?
About
For
working
vegan?
out, do you have like a
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I started, nothing too crazy, but like, I have a pull-up bar and a dip bar in my, like, right behind my desk. I have kettlebells. So Derek from Dialed Health, I do some of his kettlebell routines. I don't want to look like a bodybuilder. I
right?
don't want hyperphagy where you just look big but you're not strong. I want uh, like real muscle, like practical muscle. So a lot of body weight stuff, and the kettlebell stuff like allows for your body to connect everything, and so that's kind of what I do. I do a lot of walking as well. So I have like 2 50-pound kettlebells that I'll just walk around the warehouse with. And yeah, so I do some kind of muscular training 2 to 3 times a day, but it's like very low, like it's low weight. It's low reps. I don't like stick to a major program. I'm just trying to tell my body, hey, I want to keep a hold of this. Right.
Hmm.
So if you don't do any curls, like I really want good delts. Like I really like the look of delts. So I do a lot of shoulder stuff. But if you never tell your body this is what I want, then when you're at a caloric deficit, your body has to pull energy from somewhere to survive. And so if I can tell my whole body, I want all these muscles to stay, pull that energy from the fat, so then I will lift in some way every muscle group 2 to 3 times a day. Like I get in the office in the morning, I do some dips and some pull-ups. I'll walk around the warehouse with some weight. Then around like lunchtime, I'll do a kettlebell flow, which is like, biceps and triceps and core and legs, but like 3 minutes to 5 minutes at the max. Like it's nothing crazy. I'm not trying to get sore.
Right.
And then when I get home, we have like a little trampoline in our house. And so I'll kind of bounce on that a little bit with some weights and a lot of stabilization stuff. We have some dumbbells and so I mean, it's just like where I'm now getting 200 to 250 grams of protein in a day. I actually have the fueling to give to those muscles. But I don't want to be jacked and then not be able to ride at all. Like riding is still what I like to do. So I mean, I want that usable muscle, and having a better core, a better back, better shoulders, better arms has applied to the bike, right? I mean, I feel I can stay in an aero position better, right? Because you can shrink in with those muscles. And I can sprint a little better. I have a little bit more power of pulling the bike, to me. But with that muscle comes a higher base burn. So like 1,000 calories an hour to me used to be wide open. Like that was a crit race. That was off the front. That was me 190 beats per minute as hard as I could go. But now 1,000 calories an hour is like mid zone 3, And so now I got to fuel way more. Like I have to really keep on top of my fueling. And this most recent race I did on Saturday, I mean, I was crushing until there was about 20 minutes where I was out of food. I was out of carbs. There was no way to get anything. And because I have more muscle now, I'm burning energy at a faster rate. I'm having to do more watts to stay in the same pace. So like as long as I fuel my body right, I'm good. But man, it's a drop off quick, right? Where you just go from feeling strong to like bonking, And so making sure you have a constant stream of sugar into your system is really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me ask the obvious now. Two, maybe 3 meals a day. And you said the vegan was way of putting a box around it. Excuse me if I did. Are you still vegan?
Yeah, no, I love it.
Okay,
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, to me, it works so well for me. I don't. There's nothing I need from animal products at the moment. So protein wise, fava bean tofu, which is just fava beans and salt, and then it's like packed into like a tofu block. It's 64 grams of protein and 256 calories.
Wow.
Like what? There's a company called Meaty that does mushroom root meat. Doesn't taste like mushrooms. It tastes really good. And that's about 30 grams of protein for 200 calories. Right. So that's good. And then obviously you have, a ton of other like whatever, broccoli and potatoes and black beans. You have regular tofu, edamame. There's tons of different ways to get in a good protein source through plants. But it works so well for me. My gut biome works so well with the plants, and genetically speaking, that is something that has worked well with me. So
yeah,
when people are like, this is the diet to have, that's not true. You have to know where you come from, your genealogy, right? Like your genetics, like what do you descend from? So it's like a common example, but people always go, well, the Inuit never ate a single vegetable. All they eat is animal fat, and they have no heart disease because they're Inuit, and they have a genetic mutation that allows them to do that. If you, Mr. Northern European guy, try to do the same thing, you're going to have heart disease, right? Like that's not, if you descend from Africa, like there's a huge chance you're lactose intolerant, you know? And so like a lot of black, just people in general, they don't actually know that they should not be drinking dairy, right? Because they never have, like, being tolerant to lactose is not a stock human trait. That is a mutation that happened mostly northern hemisphere, right? Because your winters would kill all the vegetables, and so it's like anyone who could drink milk survived.
Mhm.
So look, we got our genome done through 23andMe, and then used third party companies to do a methylation test to find out everything, you know, under the sun about your genes. My wife found some really interesting things about her diet, and how for her soy is not good. She has a problem processing estrogen, and so she's got some like imbalances there. So if she eats soy, it's almost toxic to her. That's
Wow.
not for me at all. I can eat soy all day long, not a problem. My son also got that. So my son's like kind of allergic to soy. It just doesn't do well with him. He actually breaks out in rashes. So it's not like I'm saying plants are the number one thing for every single person, but I have found that my gene makeup and my heritage, because I'm like whatever, like part Irish, but also part Egyptian. So I
Hmm.
kind of have this like weird, great mix, of that I can eat plants, but then, um, yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
it's been good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to approach your diet. I think, just being mindful about what you're taking in is a great start for someone that's, struggling with weight or whatever. Um, but so many times in America anyway, I mean, people just eat whatever. It's convenient, fast, easy. There's not a lot of, with the general public anyway, there's not a lot of real mindful kind of choices being made. It's more of a function of convenience a lot of times, or taste, as opposed to,
Well, I mean, yeah. So
like
that
you're
is
talking about how much protein per calorie, you know what I mean? Like that's like a real thoughtful way to look at how I'm going to try to increase my protein and still keep my caloric levels where they need to be so I don't balloon up.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
most
Well,
people don't have
so
that approach.
most people don't think about it at all,
Hmm.
but then they complain about how they're overweight or want to say that they're big boned or something. But it's science, and if you track your calories, it becomes so simple and easy, and all the choices are just made for you.
Hmm.
So on my watch, I have a real time Seco. So I put in everything I'm eating, then my watch tracks my burn, and then I have an app that calculates the difference. So it will say your positive 400 calories, your negative 400 calories. So Saturday after the bike race, I had 500 grams of carbs during the race. I had about 150 grams of carbs before the race. I mean, I took in
Dang.
like 3,000 calories, before and during the race. But after the race, I was in a 4,500 calorie deficit. Okay. So, like, huge deficit.
Yeah.
Now, old me would have maybe ate some grapes and a watermelon and like went to bed. Right. But new me was like, okay, I have to replenish this, and I need to do it in a thoughtful way. So then I also needed to get in a good amount of protein. So I went to the grocery store because I was in the middle of Indiana, and I got everything I needed to make some sandwiches. And so then I'm eating the sandwiches and I'm tracking everything, but I'm still like a 2,000 calorie deficit. So then I continue to eat and eat, but that's a thoughtful way of continuing to eat. So then I ended the day around a 700 calorie deficit. Now, going into the next day, my body's still wanting to replenish from the day before. So now my hunger is still way up, but I'm not moving. And so I'm on the plane and I'm like starving and I want to eat, but I'm looking at my watch and I'm like, Well, I actually ate some oatmeal, and so I'm like positive 100 calories right now. So I can't just eat this kind bar plus this other thing or a muffin or whatever. Like I just got to really be mindful on it. And so a lot of times it comes down to to nighttime, and I've hit my macros, everything's good, and it's like, okay, I kind of just want a treat. I want something just for my mind, my
Mhm.
mouth pleasure.
Mhm.
Well, if I have moved a lot during the day and I'm at 1,000 calorie deficit, ice cream, dope. But if I am at 20 calorie deficit, right? I'm neutral. Okay, well then nothing, right? Sparkling water.
Yeah.
Or you know, or I'll say, well, strawberries, like okay, like a whole case of strawberries is like 250 calories. So, okay, I'll just eat these strawberries and that will give me something to eat in bed, and I'm kind of like I'm enjoying it, but you accidentally grab a bag of chips and you end up eating the whole bag of chips. That's like 1,500 calories. The other thing that's crazy is granola. People are like, dude,
Oh yeah.
granola is so healthy. I have a bag of granola that is 1,700 calories for the bag. And it's not a Costco bag. I mean, it is a little tiny bag. And so I would blow through that no problem, like without any issue, but if you're not tracking, you don't know. Everything's a guesswork. And so for me, tracking the calories and the macros has been so easy to make the right decisions. And then once you understand the food, you understand portion sizes, then this is the biggest thing. My body is fueled. I'm not starving myself. So the difference between when I was trying to stay at 150, I would not have the right amount of fat. I wouldn't have the right amount of protein. I would be way over on carbs. So then my body's like, feed us, and I'm starving. I'm like weak, and I'm just like, it's a miserable existence. But I'm like, well, I got to stay light. So then I'm just suffering. When you get in all your macros, when you're getting in your nutrients, you might still be hungry because food is awesome,
Yeah.
but you're fueled. So then you don't feel starving. My mind wants to eat, but my body isn't like in pain. I don't have hunger pains. I'm not laying in bed being like, oh my God, I have to eat, and so making sure that I'm getting in proper nutrition with those macros, but then also tracking my calories so that I stay lean has just been, it's hard. It's not easy. It's very difficult to continue that, especially if you're like a full-time 9 to 5, with a family. It's really hard to find time to cook your own food. It's hard to find time to move, and to burn those calories. So like, I totally get that side of things. But for
Yeah.
me, being able to control my intake, my body dysmorphia, my hunger, all of this, and be happy with where I'm at has just been,
It
it's
is.
taken me 40 years to get here,
Yeah,
so.
right. It is
So
one of those things that get it once you start tracking it, it's like you learn it's much easier once you start tracking it because like you said, like I'm honestly before I started tracking, it was like I had no idea. Like, oh, I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat this. And then but then once I started writing everything down, I'm just like, okay, at 2 o'clock I'm eating this, and then you know, how many calories does this have? How much protein does it have? And then, so you start realizing like, okay, these things that I'm eating here, these are bullshit. I shouldn't even be eating these, but these other things, this is actually really good. And so if I can just cut the bullshit out and then have this other stuff, but occasionally, like to your point, you want that mouth pleasure from time to time. So a little bullshit kind of helps keep you on track. I feel like for me anyway, I know for myself, that little treat at the end of the day, like you're talking about, that's an important thing.
No, for
Because
sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, you need to have, but a lot of people subscribe to this cheat day, right? And
yeah.
so some people are like, well, on Sunday I'll eat whatever I want. But
Hmm.
so I have an app that shows it tracks my 7 day calorics. So what you can see is that, let's say you stick to your diet Monday through Saturday, you're at a 200 calorie deficit every day. But then, so that's what? That's 600, 800 calories, right? That
Yep.
you're in a deficit for the week. but then on Sunday you eat 2 entire cheese pizzas and a bag of chips. Now Sunday you're at a plus 3,000 calorie deficit. Well, your whole week you've actually added fat.
Yeah.
So then, you'll get these cyclists where they're overweight and they're like, I don't get it. I'm riding 15 hours a week. How am I still overweight? And it's like,
Mhm.
well, because you rode zone one out to the cafe, you ate 3 baguettes, you know what I mean? You rode home and you treated yourself because you rode, and so it's hard, and like, do whatever you want. Everyone's journey is different, but
Yeah.
yeah, tracking it. Like, okay, I used to drink a lot of Red Bull. That was my like treat. I liked a cold can of Red Bull. But when I started putting it in, it's like, well, this is 250 calories and no macros,
Yeah.
right? So this is like, it's pointless. So I'm gonna have coffee. If I want caffeine, I'll have black coffee. I don't need this Red Bull. And so when you associate it that way, it doesn't feel like you're cutting out the life's pleasures. You're just being optimistic, or optimizing, your diet, which then ties into your brain in a positive way. And then you want to improve your diet. Like that's the big thing, is what do you want to do? If you just go, well, I guess cookies are bad, I'm just not going to eat cookies. But then you think about cookies for a month straight, and then you rebound and you go and eat every cookie in sight, right? Because you just didn't have the right framework in your mind to put those cookies in a certain box. But yeah.
Yeah.
Help me understand the timeline, this transition. Now, I've spent a lot of time on the trainer watching your impossible rides, right? And look, the mo it's understandable why you suffered on some. That's why they were called impossible rides. But you mentioned Death Valley, falling and breaking your femur. When you were doing a lot of these, and for the timeline, was it the old Tyler or the new Tyler? I mean, were you
Yeah, no,
in?
all of it was the old Tyler. Bolivia was the only one that was like a new me, right? I was starting to get heavier, and I told Jeremiah that in Bolivia. I was like, hey man, I put on some weight. I'm not really riding the way I used to. I'm coming into Bolivia as like an adventure, and I want to like explore the area. I'm not trying to race you, up to 17,000 feet. Well, he went into that one being like, I'm going to show the world that I'm the
Right.
boss, and I'm going to absolutely bury you.
Mhm.
So, you could see in Death Valley how much I suffered, and how hard it was for me, because I was about 20 pounds over what I had been in all the other ones.
Because
Got
I
it.
was going to say, there in watching these, it seemed like you were struggling a lot, seemed to bonk a lot during these things, and I'm wondering if that was just you were under fueled, or just body wasn't ready for it. I don't know if that's a little unscientific,
Well, I
but
mean, there's a lot to go into behind the scenes type stuff, but like, so Death Valley was the first time that I had ever done anything. Like, I wasn't really qualified to do something like that, and we were self-supported. So, how
Gnarly.
do you, right? It's a lot. And also, it looks like I suck because I'm being compared to maybe one of the greatest American cyclists, maybe top 10 greatest American cyclists. So like, if you put me with
I
anyone
didn't say you
else,
sucked. I said you're suffering. You
I
suffered.
know, but I'm just saying when you compare that, it's like,
Yeah.
it is a little bit different. But also during the shoots, I am working extremely hard to make sure that we are getting the shots. I'm filming a ton. I'm working with
Yeah.
the crew. Jeremiah is head down, focusing on writing, and that's it. Also, going into these projects, I'm the one editing all the stuff, so it's taking me hundreds of hours to edit these. So I'm in the office for hundreds of hours. Jeremiah is training hundreds of hours. So Jeremiah always goes into this fresh, fit, awesome, and I'm coming into it, off of it, an insane amount of editing. But whatever. Like, Death Valley was, well, so Hawaii was really the first one. That one I should never have done. I've never been above 10,000 feet, but we got it done. And that kind of changed who I was as a human. Death Valley absolutely was one of my favorite projects we've ever done. That one did fork me in a totally different direction, made me feel, like an actual athlete. Then we went on to Virginia, which that one I didn't suffer because we were with someone else who was suffering. So
Mhm.
then, and so there was that. And then we did Montana, which I think I got like Epstein-Barr, right? And so going into Montana, I had just come off of doing the race across the West. So I did a 46-hour race 2 weeks before that.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So ride your bike 930 miles, take a week off, and then try to go ride 5 days from national, Glacier National Park to Grand Tetons with Eddie Anderson, who's a World Tour pro. So
You're right.
like Montana was the worst I had ever felt. I felt like I had an extreme flu, but no signs of it. You know what I mean? Like there was no sniffling or coughing. I just had my energy. I've never felt anything like it. It was like I was depressed. My body, my hormones were on the ground. But you can't ride and not sleep and then expect to do well. So again, like going into Montana, if you didn't see that I did the race across the West and you didn't see that I was doing these other races and all this other stuff, and you just look at that one, you go, oh, this Tyler guy, he sucks. He's terrible. But Jeremiah didn't ride 46 hours from Oceanside, California to Durango, Colorado. He was training an optimized training schedule with periodization, coming into it super fit, super ready,
Yeah.
forgot to book our videographer. Okay, so he shows up. We don't have a videographer. So now I have to be the videographer. Okay, so
That's a
I'm just
lot.
saying, like,
So
what
body type had nothing to do with it then. It's just all the behind the scenes thing.
Okay,
the, the,
I
the,
got. Wait,
Yeah.
before we go, you and are you guys are friends, right?
I love Jeremiah like a brother, right?
Okay.
Right
Yeah.
now I don't know if we're going to continue working together. Essentially, I gave him the project, the Impossible Route project. We did some
Okay.
amazing things. We made 11 films.
Yeah.
No one else has done this. There's been no one else in this space that has made this amount of films with this budget, right? Like season one, we made 4 films. It cost me $3,500. So I spent $3,500 to make 4 films and work over 1,000 hours. So, like it was a
Yeah.
lot. But it's my legacy. I would never do anything different. I love it. Do I wish Jeremiah was able to pull up the other side of the business relationship and like sell it more and get us more sponsorship and do something with it? But look, he's a pro athlete. That's
Right.
what his job was. He looked at it as, well, as long as I'm riding well, then I'm doing my job. But
Hmm.
that's just not what makes a successful business. So I can't afford to keep funding it. There's just not, it's just very expensive to do these. It's very time consuming. And then again, when I'm doing the writing and the editing, and the family stuff and all this other stuff, then trying to train, you get into a position where I'm destroying my body, destroying
Yeah.
my body. The things we've done should have been once every 2-year projects,
Right.
right? And we would do 4 a year, right? And that is on top of all the other
All
stuff.
the other
So
stuff, right? Yeah.
right. So like Washington, this was season 2, episode 4, I think. It was with Andrew Jackson. We
Yeah.
did a mountain bike ride through Washington. I slept in a tree, literally. You know what I mean? I flew. What was it? No, I had just come off of winning ultra distance nationals. So I went to do ultra distance nationals and then went home for one day and then flew to Washington. So like Jeremiah's, tapered, and I just rode 32 hours. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, bro, I was crushed.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like the show must go on. You
Yeah.
do what you're gonna do. And I have zero regrets. I've loved every bit of my life so far with bikes. Bikes have been amazing. Um, I will though say, like, in France, I definitely gave Jeremiah a run for his money. I beat him on a lot of those segments. You know,
Uh-huh.
I did bonk towards the very end of day one because I didn't know we were going all the way up there. And the last town we could get food, we didn't, you know. And so it's just like, it's one of those things like, well, if you ride without food for 3 hours, like what's
Yeah.
going to happen, you know? But
Toast.
you know, anyways, I did beat him in the final sprint, so whatever, you know. So it's
All right. That's
nah.
good.
So
It's good to get the dynamics of the relationship, you know, kind of sorted out. Because, you know, watching the videos, you kind of pick up on some stuff here and there. But yeah, I particularly love the one with Andrew. I thought, you know, he's so stoic, right? And so, like, yeah, you were trying to pull stuff out of him, and
I
but
know. Yeah,
he
and
was,
I really like Andrew. I was with him in Indiana Saturday, and we raced together. And
oh, okay,
but it was like, dude, he would not give me any emotion.
yeah,
And he kept saying, oh, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I'm like, can you show it? Because
right,
you just look like you're out for a Sunday stroll. And then
yeah,
everyone in the comments was like, is this even hard? Because Andrew crushed it. But then at the very end, Andrew's like, I felt like I was dying the whole time. And it's
right,
like, dude, you kept a poker face, you know, like
man,
that
yeah,
was crazy. But yeah,
yeah.
no, and Andrew was great. That was a good one.
So I'm curious about these routes. How do you come up with how do you I mean like the concept of the impossible route, it's such a great idea. And then but then also like you know, how do you figure it out? I mean, do you just
Yeah,
get
well,
on yeah.
that's Jeremiah's job, right? Jeremiah's
Oh,
job
okay.
was to do the routing. So he would try to find something interesting, piece together something that is somewhat possible, right? Like
Mhm.
if we get to the Grand Canyon, it's like, okay, we got to jump across the Grand Canyon, you know, like,
Yeah.
okay, that's bad routing, right?
Yeah.
So he would have to go through and spend time finding out, you know, where are we going to go? What's the terrain going to be like? What kind of bikes do we need? And then also, how do we film it? So with Washington, with Andrew Jackson, the whole entire ride was single track.
Yeah.
So how do you get a support crew, right? How do you get a film crew? Like, where it's just really difficult. So yeah, he would go through and he'd find these really cool things and these really cool places, and you know, try to get the lodging, get the team out there, you know, make sure
Mhm.
it was safe. What's the time of the year should we go out? So, you know, I will say, in the moment, I didn't really appreciate what he did. I would only look at my work and I'd be like, dude, I'm the one making the stuff. You know, I wish you would do more. But
Mhm.
now, me trying to plan my own projects, I'm like, okay, he actually, he did put a lot of work in.
It's a
He was
lot.
very valuable. You know, yeah, it was important for him. And so yeah, I really value, you know, you can never value what someone else does until you try to do the thing they do, right?
Mhm.
And so so yeah, he would do all of that. So I mean, he's planned every one of the trips. And you know, so it's been it's been crazy, but we always try to do something a little different. That's the
Mhm.
other thing, is we want to tell a different story each time. So, you know, how interesting is it when it's just like the same thing over and over and over again? So we would try to add different challenges. You know, like in Virginia, we only had $20 a day to spend. You
Right.
know, in France, we had like this KOM competition thing going on. You know, we've been self-supported. We've yeah, no, it's just been he would cook them up, and I would just say, tell me where to go. Tell me what town I need to fly into, and I'll
Mhm.
be there. You know what I mean? I didn't
Right.
really look at the routes or anything. But you know, the Texas one, which was one of my favorite ones, by the way, the first one that we rode 36 hours, we rode through the night. The only time I had ever rode better than Jeremiah, because Jeremiah was not a plus 12-hour guy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he's not riding through the night, but I started to really find that that was my strong suit. So
Mhm.
when in Texas, when we rode through the night, like, it didn't, the end on the final day, I didn't put a lot of this in there, but he was struggling really, really hard. There was a point in which I was pushing him up a hill, right? Which I know pissed him off extremely, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like, but and so I didn't want, I wasn't trying to put that into the video and show like that but so I wanted to show us finishing together and being a team. But
Yeah.
definitely in Texas, he struggled hard. And anyways, that one he routed us on the maps. There's a road,
Hmm.
but it was used in the 1700s. It was a
Oh.
wagon trail in the 1700s. So when we got there, there's no road. It's just cactus. So like it was like 4 miles of hiking through gnarly cactus,
Oh, wow.
and we had no food, no water. Like me and him shared an orange for like 3 hours. And
Jeez.
those impossible routes, you know, you can't eat when you want to eat. You can't drink when you want to drink. So it's one thing if you're out riding 2 or 3 hours, you can understand what that feels like. But when you're 12 hours in and you've been out of food and water for 3 hours, that level of survival, like your brain doesn't work, your body's not working. It's so very, very difficult to keep on going. And then you have to think about filming it,
Yeah.
and so that was the difference and why our project I think was so successful is that I really stuck to film no matter what,
Hmm.
make sure the batteries are charged, make sure I have space on the memory card. I mean, that was a big, big chore for me to make sure that we continued filming.
Yeah.
Because in those moments where you're like, I don't care about anything right now, I don't want to ride at all, you don't bring out the camera. So then
Right.
what am I supposed to
Yeah.
do? You know what I mean? I get into the edit and it's like, well, we didn't record for 4 hours. That essentially doesn't even exist. So I tried to make sure we set up the cameras, get the third party, like the third person view shots. And yeah, it was phenomenal. And we will do something again in the future. But like I said, I've been trying to focus a little bit more on my overall health as a human. I would get these crazy bad bags under my eyes, like my eyes were sunken in. I felt like I had Epstein-Barr because it was every 3 to 6 weeks, it would feel like I had the flu for 2 weeks. And that was just constant for years. And I'm like, this is so frustrating. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? This is so frustrating because of the crapshoot on if I'm going to show up and I'm going to feel like death or not. But then you just have to continue riding. So, like, imagine you don't even want to get out of bed and you have to go ride 13 hours, no, wide open with a two-time national champion. So
Yeah.
that's now being broadcast on YouTube. So now I'm going to look a certain way. I mean, there's like a lot of frustration with that. And so, yeah, just wanted to kind of like reset and find, okay, am I overdoing it? How much am I damaging my body by doing these insane things? And so this year to me was sort of like a regroup year, and to focus on a new goal, which is to get my body a little bit more sturdy and have more longevity to myself. I mean, a lot of people don't ride for very long. They get fit, they burn out, they leave the sport.
Right.
I don't want to do that. I want to be 85 years old and still riding, and so this has been, yeah, big transformation for me, and it's
Yeah.
been good.
Well, listen, you say you're worried about how it look in a certain way on in these videos. I don't think there's anybody that watches those videos that thinks like, oh man, Tyler, he doesn't have it. I mean, it's insane. The rides are crazy. The mileage, the elevation, the hours. It's like it's really aspirational stuff. I don't think there's maybe it's like a 1%. If you have any detractors thinking like, oh, Tyler's just not holding his own, it's like that's the farthest thing from my thought. When I'm watching it, I'm just like in amazement of the accomplishment itself. And I do lean towards longer ultra stuff. I mean, like I do really like that. That's really appealing to me. And I do feel
Mhm.
like the longer it goes, the better I do. So I have that kind of thing, because if as you get older, you're still a young buck. as you get older, you realize like we just can't. I mean, I don't want to speak for Dave, but I can't go with these. If I run into a 26-year-old, that has the same kind of work ethic that I'm putting in or putting in similar time, I don't have a prayer. My only chance is if it goes really long and it gets super hard. That's when I have a chance. And then also, yeah, I think that's really the only way I'm going to have a chance. Is it's got to be really long and stupid hard, and that's the only way I'm going to be able to maintain with some of these younger riders. And so as you get older, I feel like I'm still competitive. I'm still a competitive person, and I still want to put myself in situations where I have to rise up and do something, hard. But yeah, it just gets really challenging as you get older. I wonder about, what you're talking about with Epstein-Barr and, you're putting yourself through the ringer physically, um, you know, on the regular. I mean, some people might do something like what you would maybe once or twice a year, they might go do something, extraordinary like that, but you were doing it back to back to back. It
Yeah,
is,
I was burning the candle at both ends for sure.
yeah,
And then coming home and trying to, I had a
right.
day job doing websites, and then I got to edit the videos. Anyways, but whatever. Like the things that I've been able to achieve, is something that when I'm looking back on my life and I look at these pictures and I look at these memories, and no one did anything great sitting on the couch relaxing.
Yeah.
It's like it takes work. It takes a psychotic level of dedication. And so what I've learned is that I can achieve anything I want to achieve if I want it.
Hmm.
And so then that sort of messes up my mind a little bit, because then I feel lazy if I don't achieve something, because I know I can do it. And so like when I go, I would like to get a six pack, I would like to get my physique a little bit better. Well, I know I can. Am I willing to do it? Am I willing to put that time, that work? And I know that these like fitness influencers make it look super easy, or
Hmm.
a lot of the, not a lot, but there has been some talk about HRT, TRT.
Hmm.
TRT is extremely easy to get nowadays. But I will tell you that the amount of guys that I know that are on TRT and still look like a bag of potato chips, right? It doesn't mean you instantly have a physique. You don't just bulk up and grow muscle for no reason. It takes a psychotic level of dedication to tracking your macros, to having the mental uh, discipline to not overeat, to to keep moving when you kind of don't want to move.
Hmm.
So it's been one of those things where it's like people look at the pictures and they just don't understand what goes behind that. And
Sure.
I've tried to talk a little bit about it. I want to talk more about it. That, yeah, I'm not trying to make someone feel bad. Like when I post this picture, this is 3 years in the making, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold this one more day, right?
Right.
Like it's every day. It comes one day at a time. Like, am I going to just let all this go because of how much work it is and how much I'm thinking about my body and my fitness and my diet? And to me, I like that. I like having that going on in my head, because as soon as I move that out, the only thing that's replaced is just eating nonstop. And so what helps me is that darkness. I got to stay away from that darkness. So then I like this constant thinking about my physique, thinking about my diet, thinking about my performance. I like feeling like an athlete, but
Hmm.
fuck, dude, it is
It's
so much
slippery,
work.
right? It's slippery.
Yeah.
It could go in an instant, just like you said. I know a lot of people call it going off the rails. And maybe like I know occasionally like I'll have a meal sometimes and then it'd be like, I'll have dessert, when I really shouldn't. But or whatever. Who's to say you should or shouldn't? But just in the context of tracking your intake and your diet, there's
it is
definitely
interesting
decisions you make. Dave, do you track your diet?
I'm I do not count, but I am maniacal about what I eat, and it basically the same thing every day. Like, so I know generally where I am every day. Like, I don't, I yeah, I won't have, I don't snack, I don't do anything like that, but it's the same thing every day. So I know really where I am. I don't, which is probably not good because if I'm at deficit, then I'm over and I'm still eating the same thing. But I'm pretty maniacal about what goes in, and it's like I pack my lunch every day when I go to work because I don't want someone to go, "Hey, we're going deli sandwiches today," and then I'm going to go have that. By the way, they were kind enough to throw in chocolate chip cookies, right? So,
Dave
but
had
it is interesting.
oh, go ahead.
Interesting you said that because a friend of the pod, Dara, who is a physical therapist and she does lean health nutrition. She has a set of abs that I could only dream of, and she does a lot of workout, but she has posted that these abs are as a result of diet and nothing really else. And she is very, very, very plant-based, like you're saying. So I think you've done a lot of things here. First of all, Tyler, I mean, you shattered that myth that it takes a lot of time in the gym and a lot of, crunches and all this other stuff. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do those, but I think people forget the diet aspect of it, right? You've just confirmed.
Yeah, so they see a six pack and they go, "Well, I must do 1,000 crunches a day to achieve that." You could do 1,000,000 crunches a day and still be fat
Yep.
if you're in a surplus, And so it's just about getting rid of that top layer. But it is for men, we carry all of our fat in that lower two abs, essentially,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
so that's the last thing to go. So by the time you're like at a 10% body fat, that's like when the abs really start to show, which is almost borderline unhealthy.
Yeah.
And like I had said, the better my abs look, the worst I'm performing. Right. So like it is really weird, because I'm having to be in such a deficit that I'm not fueling my body quite the way it needs to for training. Right. So I'll have to go in these little like waves where I go in a surplus if I'm training, if I'm doing intervals, if I'm doing something big. Okay, let's feed the muscles, let's grow, let's have our growth period. And then if I want to try to slim down and get a little bit lighter, then I'll go into a deficit. But it's micro adjustments, and people try to do these swings where it's like I'm gonna only eat salad for a week, or then I'm gonna just binge for a week. And it's like, nah, man, you got to just keep it just right, right in the middle there. And but yeah, I mean, I don't do crunches at all. Like I'll do a little bit of core stuff with yoga and the kettlebells, kind of, but yeah, it's just, man, it's just all done with diet. And it, for you doing not tracking but eating the same thing, that balances out, right? So your calories don't stop counting at midnight and start counting, at 1 in the morning. It's not a 24-hour thing. It's a constant spectrum. So like if you look at your deficit over a week, over a month, over 6 months, that's what matters, right? It's not like, okay, well, I was a deficit today and I was a deficit tomorrow, but on Wednesday I'm over. Like it will all just balance out. So like if you're eating the same exact thing and you understand portions, then you don't need to track it. You should track it at least once to understand like what is a bowl of cereal, what is a bagel, what is a cup of rice. Like you can look at it and go, okay, I get this. But if you're sticking to the same thing, for me, I really like variety. So I try to eat with like the seasons. So like berries when they're in, stone fruit when they're in. I'll switch between sweet potatoes or golden potatoes. I go back and forth with broccolini or cauliflower or carrots. but I'll go in these like kicks where I'll eat, sauteed broccoli every single night for like a month, and then I go to like roasted carrots every single night for like a month. Like, I really try to dial in that, but also got to switch it up because, sometimes it's just, it gets a little boring.
Yeah. What about donuts, Tyler?
I'm not weak with donuts. Like sweets aren't my thing.
Oh, okay.
I don't really have a sweet tooth. Savory food though, for sure.
Yeah.
And so like potato chips is definitely a slippery slope for me.
Hmm.
But I would say muffins. Like going back to my childhood, my grandma would pick me up from daycare every single day, and she would have a blueberry muffin for me. And so blueberry muffins are like crack to me.
Uh-huh.
Very, very difficult. So when I do these adventure rides, like I'll go do a big adventure ride by myself for 8 to 10 hours, right out my back door. I'll go sneak into Yosemite. I'll go to places that just, from my door, I can go 30 miles and climb 8,000 feet, right?
Awesome.
Just into the woods, right? And so what I'll do is my wife will make me like some banana nut bread or like blueberry muffins. And so then in my hydro pack in the pocket, I've got 1,500 calories of muffins, and I'm just like, yeah, dude. So I'll get up and I'll stare at a lake and I'll just eat these muffins, and I'll kind of get that. I'll get that out of my system a bit, but
Yeah. Muffin
Yeah,
power.
that was a dig at me
Yeah.
because the one time but it's the same Friday every day. I have donut day on Friday morning. That's the only
Yeah.
time
That's
I eat sweets. That's
that's what
that's he was
motivated the
taking a cheap
question.
shot at me, but it was
okay.
every
No,
morning,
it
every
wasn't a
morning,
cheap shot,
every
dude.
Friday. Doesn't matter where I am, but then I don't have sweets the rest of the week. Um, but no, it's interesting. One comment, and then well, two comments. First of all, I want to thank you for sharing this because I was telling a friend that you were going to be on, and he said, "Oh, he was going through this body dysmorphia because he follows you." And I said, "Yeah." And I told him the story that my freshman year in high school, I had it. I know I did. And you've been now you're talking a long time ago. So Ben don't talk about it now. It was anorexia, if you will, wasn't even non-existent back then, right? You just didn't know. To your point, it was um, my freshman year high school picture came back. They got delivered. And I went to study hall and I said, "Oh," I opened the envelope and I looked at myself. I said, "What the fuck?" And I thought I was looking good and I looked like a skeleton. And that's kind of the switch that went off for me then. But as a cyclist, I battle it. I know I'm battling it today on some level. We went out to dinner with some people. I had put on 10 pounds. And I'm trying to wrestle like, okay, why? It's okay with putting on 10 pounds, but I just want to know why. And I'm doing this and doing that. And we went out to dinner with some friends we hadn't seen in a long time, and the friend turned and said, "It's so good to see Dave healthy for the first time in a long time." And I go, and what did I do? The next logical thing, I went and I dropped 10 pounds. I'm like, oh my God, she thinks I'm healthy.
Yeah.
you know, but it is good to, having said that, I know I'm struggling with it now, but it is good to see that there is that. And I think that that's what we need to work at is what is that point where you can actually put on the weight that makes you healthy, but still hold that power. You were talking about that 170 number. That's kind of that magical number for you where you look better or felt better, but we're still able to ride. And I think that that's something that is not just about the weight. It's finding that sweet spot, if you will. I
Mhm.
don't know.
Well, and also totally, and also the sport that what discipline are you in, right? And
Mhm.
so for me, ultra distance is a little bit more forgiving for weight.
Mhm.
I did the Tucson Bicycle Classic. It was my only pro stage race I've ever done. Oh my God. I mean, these guys were skeletons. There
Yeah.
was no draft. And we were doing in the road race, we averaged 32 miles an hour for the first lap of a road race. Like
Wow.
my eyes were bleeding. I was like, I don't understand this. This is so hard. And so at that level, you see where even 1 pound, makes a difference, also just on your surface area, right? So
Yeah.
like you're a little heavier, plus now you're moving more air. So,
Marginal gains. Yeah.
Yeah.
but so like gravel racing is also a little bit less important for weight. And so, yeah, so I mean, you kind of find what works for you, like where your body type is going to be best at. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a crazy thing with cycling and how we want to be as light as possible. But then this is the other thing. It's like when someone goes, "You look healthy," it's like, yeah, but I mean, I'm performing the best I've ever performed. When you don't look healthy, so when
Hmm.
someone's like, "You look terrible," and it's like, yeah, but I have objective data that says I just did the
Right.
best ever. You know what I mean?
Right.
I have Strava. It shows that I am the best I've ever been.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to take that into account when someone's like, you need to add weight, and you're just like, you mean get
Counterintuitive.
slower, get
Yeah.
slower. Like
Right.
you
Yeah.
want me to get worse? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
know. It's like, hey, let me whip out this spreadsheet and I'll show you how healthy I am. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you don't need that. I can see you looking at you, you just don't have any weight on you.
Put
Well,
on
and
weight, says the pickleballer.
Yeah.
my justification for a long time was just that America is in general is just too fat,
Yes.
and that we've changed the BMI to accommodate people because everyone was morbidly obese, and they're
Yes.
like, well, we can't just call everyone morbidly obese, but it's like, but that is what it is, right? I mean, that's so we just
Yeah.
you don't want to say the truth. We just want to adjust the numbers. And so then it's like, well, yeah, you think I'm too skinny compared to the fact that every person you see is morbidly obese, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I might look sick compared to those people, but just as like a caveman or something, you know what I mean? Like a
Yeah.
normal stock human, I'm not that way. And so look, there's a balance. We all have to find it. That is
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
But I will say that I feel so much better being able to do multiple sports well, right? So I
Hmm.
can swim well. Like I said, I did a really fast half marathon yesterday. I'm able to do ultra distance and mountain biking and motocross. I'm able to I don't know, just like lifting weights also is kind of feels good to like move your body in that way. And
Hmm.
so it was annoying that it was like, well, I'm super duper fit only in this one vein,
Mm.
right? If we climb up a long hill, okay,
Hmm.
so great. But everything else, I'm a joke. Like I'm not an athlete. I can't run at all. I can't swim. I can't do anything else. And so it's been nice giving up that speed. So
Yeah.
to talk about data, um, there's a climb behind my house. It's a beyond category climb. It climbs about 4,000 feet from 3,500 to like 7,500. And my best time is an hour and 2 minutes at an average of 260 watts. I've been going
Hmm.
out routinely and I've been doing 315 watts at an hour and 4 minutes.
Hmm.
So 2 minutes slower
Yeah.
at like 45 watts more or whatever, or 50 watts more, so it's like a lot of extra energy to go slower,
Hmm.
and so, yeah, on the beyond category climb, I have to just swallow that's not me anymore. That's not going to be me.
But but
And
you just raised something for the average person though, and I think that that's really important, right? Okay, so you're feeling better. You're a better athlete. You're cranking out more, and at the end of the day, you're only 2 minutes slower. And for a cyclist like us, we say that's a fucking eternity. But the
yeah,
average cyclist out there is not gonna know the difference. They're not racing. It's the Saturday group ride people, right, that are trying to be skinny, or maybe they do the fast rides, but they're not really racing. You're really not gonna know the difference, and yet you're gonna feel better. It's 2 fucking minutes,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, and that,
Yeah, but
and yes, if I was
eh,
trying to break, if I was trying to break an hour up Mount Diablo, yep, oh my God, I don't get the t-shirt. But the average person who is fighting this feeling is going to be so much better off if they give up the 2 minutes, but they're healthier, able to do more, not always drained, don't have bags under their eyes. Is, I mean, that's
Uh, yeah, agreed, agreed. I mean, the
yeah.
amount of the state of fatigue that I was in all the time, just I didn't really notice it, but it's like brain fog all the time. I get home and my wife's like, "Hey, let's go do something," or my daughter wanted to do something, and it's like, I did intervals. I'm smoked. I just want to sit on the couch. Like that kind of has had to change. But look, I'm so grateful that I went through that because
Hmm.
I learned that about myself. So if I never went through that, if I never achieved a 5 watt per kilo FTP and battled this and got super skinny, maybe there would always be something in the back of my head going, I wish I
Hmm.
could do, because how many
Yeah.
like how many people look at the Tour de France and go, if I was a pro cyclist, I could be there. Well,
Hmm.
I know that I tried to do that, and I know there's no fucking way, right? Like I could train 20 hours a week. That's not for me, right? I'm not gonna be a pro cyclist, and so I got to know what that would be like, and that's not for me. And so you can kind of check that off the box and go, okay, I'm not gonna have any regrets. I tried to achieve the best I could. And I think it's a really amazing self exploration journey of finding, how light can you get while putting out a lot of power. Like that's a very difficult thing to do, right? Decrease rate, weight, increase power. But at a certain point, don't let that consume your life. Don't let that be where you're a cat 3 racing for a t-shirt and you have body dysmorphia and you're starving yourself. Like that, there's
Right.
no
Right.
what's the point?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's I'm just coming off of that. That's why I'm saying this. This is why I'm like you. It's just been an epiphany for me, right? And not. I mean, you talk about fatigue. I'm so fucking tired. I can't sleep at night. I'm so fatigued. I can't sleep at night. Right? I mean, how crazy is that?
Yeah, I
So
think everybody takes their journey through cycling. It's all different for all of us, depending on where we're from, and some of us were fat as kids, some of us were skinny as kids, and then and some of us like longer distance sprinting, whatever. There's just so many different routes you can take. The At the end of it, it's like I think that you need to find the happiness. It sounds like the thing that I love about one of the things I love about following you all these years is the amount of content that you put together. It's like you can see this process, of your life and these different stages, right? So you went from, trying to be a world tour rider to, these impossible routes and now you're more adventure stuff. And I think it shows cyclists that are maybe, have this one idea about themselves. To Dave's point, or you said cat 3 trying to break an hour, get a t-shirt, maybe that's not the end all for them. They could get into riding gravel and going on 6 hour adventures instead of focusing on this high intensity for an hour type of thing. And I think seeing athletes like yourself that have, there's different chapters to your arc in cycling, and I think that's you've done a good service to those of us that love the sport and that follow the sport and that are not, serious athletes. So, I just want, I know how I haven't done the editing myself. Last year, I did a trip to Europe with a buddy of mine, and he filmed it all. He did all the planning. Like when you're talking about Jeremiah, I was thinking about my friend Bo. He did all the planning for the trip, and we went from the Italian Alps to the French Alps to the Swiss Alps, and we rode different icons every single day, all these epic climbs. They were long days, and on top of all that, he's filming everything, and then he's coming home at night. I'm going to bed. He's on the computer loading, getting his
Yeah.
SIM cards all dialed up. I mean, it's a massive amount of work, and so the sheer quantity of content that you have is amazing, and then the quality of it also is really fantastic and engaging. So it's
Well,
yeah,
I appreciate that, and you know that's what I look at as my job as a storyteller. So how do I make someone who's sitting on the couch feel like they are getting frostbite on their wiener in Wisconsin? You know what I mean? Like I need to
yeah,
convey that to them, you know. And so that's what I really enjoy. I really like being a filmmaker and a storyteller, and it is a lot of work, but you know it's what I like to do. And I really pride myself with some of the content we put out there. So it's why I don't make a lot of videos though. You know, I go in spurts where I do things, but it's because I want them to be the best they can be. I don't want to just throw something together and that be that.
right.
And so it you know, it takes me a little while to put stuff together, but yeah, it's been an amazing journey. Bikes have done so much for my life, and
Yeah.
so that's why I wanted to make sure I had a healthy relationship with them, and that I didn't let this bicycle destroy my marriage, my health, you know, my life.
Right.
Like,
Right.
what a wild thing, right?
Yeah.
Corny question, but you brought it up. I want to be sensitive to your time but corny question, but you brought it up a couple of times. All the work that you do, your long trips, your rant, you were in Indiana, you fly home, and then you go run a half marathon. You know, where's that family? How do you find that family work-life balance? Because you've managed, you said you squeezed in a little time with your daughter before you did the marathon, and then but it's got to be on top of everything else you got to be doing. It's got to be it's amazing that you're doing it as you go through Instagram, you see pictures of the family. It's got to be
Well,
tough
yeah.
to
So
squeeze all that
so
in.
so the family for me is my number one priority.
Okay.
But there's a concept that I've been playing with a little bit in my head, which is like, if I want to give them the best version of myself, I need to be the best version of myself. And
Hmm.
so, you
Yep.
know, a lot of dads, they go, as soon as they become a dad, they go, well, I'm done doing anything for myself because that's selfish. So I'm going to do everything for my kids. But then
Yep.
that dad becomes overweight, lethargic, resentful,
Hmm.
bitter, you
Yep.
know. And so then, okay, maybe you're sitting on the couch watching cartoons with your daughter. That's not a memory. It's not a core memory she's going to have in her head, you know. So my time with my family is more about quality than it is quantity. And now it's very, very difficult because I got to make sure that if I'm going to run a half marathon, you know, for an hour and 47 minutes after I've been gone all weekend, how can I make sure that my family knows that I'm not just abandoning them the second I get home? And so,
Right.
you know, at our little town, there was like a Taylor Swift tribute band, and my daughter was so into it. So, like, you know, we ended up, she got dressed up, we got to go there, you know. So, in my daughter's head, dad comes home and I get to go to this concert and, you know, have so much fun. And then we went out to dinner afterwards, and it was kind of just all about, like, you know, her and that. So when I'm present, I am present. Like, we're doing something, you know.
Hmm.
We'll take them camping, and you know, I put the phone away. Like, I'm just all about them. My son, I've been teaching him how to drive, so we've been going up in the mountains, and he's been like four-wheeling my Forerunner, which is terrifying. And you know, so it's a lot. You know, my wife also really helps fill in those gaps. My wife is constantly taking my daughter to swim lessons or, you know, dance class. You know, she does 4-H. Me and my daughter wrestle every night. Like, we play these games on the bed where it's just like all different things, like not like collegiate wrestling, but like we'll just kind of mess around, you know what I mean? And I have a game called the tree, and so like I'm a different shape of a tree, and she has to crawl around. Um, Whatever. I have like 20 games where it's just me holding some position or like kind of hanging out in bed with my daughter, but my daughter she's all into it. You
Oh
know, it's
yeah.
like this is quality time with dad. But if I hadn't gone for that run, then one, I've been flying all day, so like I'm just kind of tired. You know, I haven't done anything really for my body, so I kind of have anxiety. that I haven't moved. And I didn't really set out to go do a half marathon. I kind of was like, I'm going to go run like 2 miles. And then I just was feeling good. So then I just kind of kept running. And then I was like, I had, anyways. So it is a
We
hard balance.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard balance to make sure, but if you give 100%, you can expect 100%. And I expect 100% support from my family, but I will give them 100% without any question,
Yeah.
And so they've got a pretty ripping life. I used to side a little too much on, well, I'm funding your life so I can kind of do whatever I want, because without me making the money, what. But I had to abandon that idea, because it was like, my daughter doesn't care if
Right.
she has a new play set. She wants my time. She wants my energy. And that was the other thing. It's like, okay, well, then if I'm super fatigued and I'm tired, I can't give her the energy she requires. So she wants to play dolls. Well, if I'm just like, that's a half-ass, you know what I mean? No, like I gotta be this character. So like I have to now be this thing. And last night after dinner, we played hide and seek like in the little hotel, like it's part of a resort. So me and her were like running around and hiding in this hotel. Dude, she was just laughing hysterically. And it was 10 minutes of
Right.
us, I found a little like storage closet in the hotel that was open, and so then I hid in there, and then she saw it, and we investigated the storage closet, and she's like, "Oh, like, are we supposed to be in here?" Anyways, that was like a core memory yesterday, that she got to go to a Taylor Swift concert. We got to go to dinner. We got to play hide and seek in this hotel, and that total time was 2.5 hours. Versus if I hadn't ran, yeah, I'd be hanging out with her doing what though, right? Like that, my
Right.
time wasn't needed at that moment. So when I'm going to put time into the family, make it count. But then also don't just sit on the couch and doom scroll. Like that's the thing, is like, well, okay, I have 2 hours that I can do something with. Let me put that into me, instead of just sitting here doing, jack shit. So
Right.
Wisdom.
yeah,
Well,
it's a hard balance, but I put a lot of time into it.
I will say, enjoy the moments when your daughter and your son want to do everything with you and think you're the coolest cat. Because there is a time when, there was a time with my daughter where I felt like I couldn't walk across the room without her being annoyed with me. So there was like when she was younger, as soon as I pull in the driveway, she'd fly off the side porch and she'd come running up and this big hug. And then fast forward about 10 years, and then there's the other thing that happens, right? When they go through the change, and then, uh, you know, anyway, but it all comes back, so now she's beyond that, and we have this really close relationship. And, but yeah, there's certainly those moments when the kids just think you can't do any wrong, and those are moments to cherish for sure. But and it sounds like you're doing that,
No,
so
and I'm in that right now, where my daughter's 6, my son's 13. They're
hmm
both like transitioning away, right? So there,
hmm
I can feel them pulling away. And
yeah.
so I used to travel, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a month for some bike thing.
hmm
I have not traveled it, outside of Bolivia. It's been a year since I got on a plane again. So for the last year, I've really tried to focus on, like, this feels like one of the most important times in my kid's life, because I'll never get this time back. She's never
Yeah.
going to be 6 again. My son again is like, he's, yeah. So
That's a tough
I'll
age, yeah.
I'll be able to do whatever I want to do when my kids think I am the worst for a little while. Like, okay,
Yeah.
when my daughter's going through her phase, when my son's going through her phase, I'm gonna jump on a plane. I'm out of here. But right now, I need to be home. I need to be present. I need to be giving them my undivided attention for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, Tyler, I really appreciate your time today. And how open you are just in general, how vulnerable, you put it out there for everybody. And It's something that I really appreciate. And um, at this point, I need to we need to wrap it up.
Yeah.
You know, it is a work day, so I gotta keep it moving. But man, as I said, let's before we let you go, what's next for you? What's the next, chapter in the VC
He
adventures?
just told you he's gonna be an oak tree tonight and he's gonna do this.
uh, yeah, so I've got some big projects still planned. I have this 1,800-mile FKT from Canada to Mexico along the West Coast. So the Pacific
Whoa.
Coast Highway FKT. That's something that's been on the list. I just been waiting for the new Air Road. And
Okay.
so that fully self-supported, try to do it in about 8 to 10 days. That should be cool. Ultra distance nationals is coming up. But it's right when my kids go back to school.
Wow.
So I won't have my crew with me, and your crew is just as important as the rider during an ultra distance race. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to put together a crew for that, but that is on the list. I have an Ironman in Tennessee, full length Ironman.
Wow.
Um, I've got some other projects kind of just on the back burner. I've got this Lost Coast thing in Kauai that I want to do. Yeah, just there's a lot that I would like to do. I just got to find the funding for it. The bike industry is product rich, cash poor, as they say.
Mhm.
So that's been a little bit hard to find, funding for some of these projects. And so but what's in the future just in general for me is I'm not totally sure. I'd like to get into more events, so I want to put on a fondo in my area, the
Oh,
Sugar
cool.
Pine Epic. I'd like to do that. I do have 640 acres in New Mexico that we've been developing, so I'd like to maybe do some kind of massive year-end like festival out there with bikes, like a multi-day type festival. That would be kind of cool. Yeah, I just want to explore new things, do new things. I want to get certified for skydiving. I have a project. I'd like to take a canyon in a box, shove it out of a plane, skydive down, build the box wherever it lands, and then try to like ride out somehow. Uh, that would be kind of cool. I've been getting
Uh,
into running. I did an ultra marathon. I did a 32-mile trail run. So that was a lot of fun. And yeah, so just kind of been just exploring everything there is. I think to me, the way to make your life feel long and fruitful is to add more points of data. So if like on a line, if you add a point, and it's just say cycling, and you keep cycling or like road cycling, you can increase the size of that plot point. But when you look back, it's just one plot point. Maybe it's big, but if you have 1,000 little plot points, man, that just makes your life feel so long. And so I want to experience everything, right? I want to learn how to knit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like whatever, right? I could, if
yeah.
it's if I can do it, I want to learn it. I want to experience it. It's why I've gotten into cooking. I really like cooking a lot. Like that's super fun.
Right.
But
Are
anyways,
you starting a cooking website, or is that just going to be because
yeah.
yeah,
So, well, it's gonna be like you know, the plant-based guide to, or like a meat eater's guide to a plant-based diet type thing,
got
right?
it.
So how to with all the macros and the videos, how, because some people don't know anything. They go, I don't know how to cook broccoli. That's crazy to me. It's like put it in
Right.
a skillet, with oil and salt. That's it. You know what I
Yep.
mean? But people think it's so confusing and hard to cook on your own. It's really not. So
Right.
yeah, so I want to put out all of my recipes, the stuff that I do every day. I mean, I cook almost every single day, and so yeah, I just want to give that out to people to see, help them with that. So that's also on the back burner. So yeah.
Yeah, man, you got a lot of balls in the air and a busy,
Yeah, I'm
busy
tired just listening to it.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think it's good, to always be challenging yourself and you know, like those points of data, like you're talking about. That's a great way to look at it. Yeah. So, all right, Dave, you got anything before we wrap it up?
No, awesome, man. Thank you so much. It really it's given me a lot to think about.
Yep.
Put that
Awesome.
All
way.
right.
Just a little very close to home. So
Phenomenal. Well, guys, thank you so much. It's actually perfect timing because my daughter and wife just pulled up. I told them they needed to come after the podcast. So I
Nice.
hear Taylor Swift blaring from the car, right? And they just pulled up. So
Yeah.
great timing. But I appreciate you
Awesome.
guys.
All
You
right.
have
Likewise.
Thank you so
Thanks so
much.
much, Tyler. Take care,
All
buddy.
right, bye.
Yeah, bye.